On what was supposed to be my wedding day to Clara, I was thrown back in time to the day I first told her I loved her. In front of me, Clara politely rejected me, her voice distant. "I only see you as a little brother." I gave a small smile. "Fine. But whoever regrets this has to be a puppy forever." Her expression was calm. "I never regret anything. If I hadn't seen you 5 years from now, kneeling on the floor and crying for me to come back, I might have actually believed you. Keep pretending. You're the master of it, after all. Unsend that message and I'll pretend I never saw it." I looked at the message from Clara on my screen. I scrolled up. It was the text I'd sent 3 minutes ago. "Clara, I like you. I don't want to be your brother." I lowered my eyes and typed casually, "You won't even think about it?" Sure enough, a few moments later, Clara's reply came. The exact same polite rejection as last time. "I only see you as a little brother." Seeing those words, I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. How did I reply back then? Oh right, I didn't reply at all. I was too busy crying in a corner. Back then, I was just ashamed of my own wretched feelings. I was angry and blamed myself for being rejected by Clara. But what I didn't know then was that I wasn't the only one with those kinds of complicated feelings. It's just that Clara was cool and composed. She always maintained the responsibility and boundaries that came with being an older sister. When it came to this hidden love that never should have existed, she chose to suppress and ignore it. My passionate efforts were met with her ice-cold rejections, time and time again. So, in the end, the one who suffered all the heartache and moral torment was me. Alone. Later, when she finally looked back and faced her own feelings, she realized she shouldn't have run away. And so, we naturally planned our wedding, which was supposed to be today. Right now, I should have been at the church for the wedding. But I woke up 5 years in the past. Back to the moment I first confessed to Clara and got rejected. After realizing I time-traveled, it only took me 10 minutes to accept it. Right now, Clara had no idea that I already knew how she felt about me. She was still trying everything to push me away, pretending to be cold and indifferent, hoping I'd get discouraged and give up. I guess this must be fate. The pain I once went through, Clara should get a taste of it herself. On my phone screen, the typing indicator just kept bubbling up. I typed out a message before she could reply. "Fine. Just don't regret it. Whoever regrets this has to be a puppy forever." After what felt like a long time, Clara's calm reply finally came. "I never regret anything." I scoffed and tossed my phone onto the pillow. "Yeah, right. Keep up the act. You're unbelievable." The next morning, when I went downstairs, Clara was already busy in the kitchen. After Clara's parents died in a car crash, my mom and dad took her in. They raised her for over a decade. We have no blood relation, but we were forced to be tied together. Just like now. Even in this awkward situation, right after she rejected my confession, Clara still had to get up early to make me breakfast. What can you do? I've been eating her breakfast for 10 years. It's a habit. I won't be home for lunch or dinner today. I took a bite of my sandwich and called out to Clara in the kitchen. "I'm hanging out with friends this afternoon." She was focused on frying an egg, and I couldn't tell if she'd heard me. This morning, she seemed to be avoiding me. She just stayed in the kitchen, busy with who knows what. It wasn't until I was at the entryway putting on my shoes that she walked out from the living room with an umbrella. "The forecast says it's going to rain. Don't forget this." As she said it, Clara's expression had returned to the calm, sisterly demeanor she always had. It was as if yesterday's cold rejection was just my imagination.
I smilte her.
Okay. As I opened the front door, I turned back. "By the way, Clara." Meeting her gaze, I spoke in a relaxed tone. "I thought about it last night before bed. And you're right. I've never dated anyone, so I must have mistaken family affection for romantic love. Sorry about that. I probably made you misunderstand, too." Clara's hand, holding the umbrella, slowly tightened. After a moment, she said softly, "It's good that you understand." I pretended not to see her subtle reaction. I just patted her shoulder and leaned in a little closer. My warm breath brushed against her ear. I said with a grin, "I need to move my stuff out of the classroom now that I've graduated. I still have a few boxes left. I guess I'll have to trouble you, sis. I sat in a private room at a karaoke bar, the loud noise making my ears hurt. Next to me, Alex curiously handed me a beer. What are you doing here today? I thought you hated these kinds of parties. I took a sip, shaking my head with a smile. Just suddenly felt like coming. Clara was very strict with me. I even had a curfew. If I went out, I had to check in, and if she didn't get a text back within a couple of hours, she'd call. If I was out too late, her car would soon be parked somewhere near the party, waiting. In my past life, I was afraid of making her angry. I was always a good, obedient kid and listened to her. Thinking back on it now, this was hardly a sister's concern. This was pure possessiveness. And she had the nerve to pretend it was just deep sibling affection. You never know how much a knife hurts until it's sticking in your own back. Won't your sister get mad? Alex asked worriedly. Last time we hung out, we didn't get home until dawn. When she came to pick you up, she looked furious. I casually swirled the beer bottle in my hand. What right does she have to be mad? I put on a faint smile. She's not my real sister. Clara is 3 years older than me. When I turned 18, she was already in college. When we were little, my parents were always busy traveling for business, so taking care of me fell to her and the nanny. You could say Clara basically raised me. My feelings for her were an open book. But she wanted to play the part of a saint, untouched by worldly desires. Isn't that a little unfair? By the time Clara got to the school, it was already evening. The hallways were filled with parents and relatives helping their kids move their things. Her tall figure stood out in the crowd. Even my homeroom teacher recognized her at a glance. Here to help your brother move his stuff? Clara smiled softly. Yes. She had graduated from this school, too. She even had the same homeroom teacher. The teacher led her over to my desk. He's moved most of his things. There are just a few boxes of books left. Clara nodded her thanks and crouched down to help organize them. The boxes were filled with old test papers and reference books. And my notebooks. She flipped one open casually, the pages filled with my handwriting. She could almost picture me sitting in class, paying close attention. Clara flipped through a few more pages. Suddenly, her eyes caught something tucked inside the book. She gently pulled it out. It was a few little notes covered in writing. It was obviously a conversation passed back and forth in class. Clara frowned slightly. Beside her, the homeroom teacher spoke up again, teasing. By the way, now that your brother has graduated, you can let him date, you know. Clara froze for a second. He's dating someone? The teacher waved his hand, a teasing look on his face. These kids are always so secretive about their crushes during puberty. We teachers see it, but we don't say anything. After all, they have their final exams, right? But the exams are over now, so we just let them be. Clara smiled but didn't say anything. After the teacher left, she lowered her eyes and opened the notes again. Her intuition told her the handwriting wasn't a guy's. Clara narrowed her eyes. She looked up at the wall, where model essays from the last mock exam were posted. She compared the handwriting on each one until her gaze landed on the last page. The name at the bottom was Vivian Lin. She glanced back at the class photo from the sports meet hanging on the back wall. Vivian Lin, second row, first from the left. Following the note, she scanned the faces one by one. Finally, a girl's face came into view, and maybe it was a coincidence. Right next to her was Leo, smiling brightly. After the song ended, my phone vibrated. It was a text from Clara. I moved your stuff home for you. I typed back, okay, thanks, sis. Don't move any of my things. Okay? Otherwise, I won't be able to find them next time. Clara replied quickly. I left them on your desk, untouched. What time will you be back tonight? I picked up my phone and sent a voice message. I don't know, maybe 11. Immediately, my phone rang. It was Clara. Her voice sounded a little hoarse over the phone. Send me your location later. I'll drive over and pick you up. I quickly waved my hands as if she could see me. No, that's too much trouble. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Clara said flatly, it's no trouble. I'll be in the area anyway. Who just happens to be in the area 20 miles out of their way? I didn't bother to call her out on it. Just then, the class president who organized the party came over. Leo, what do you want to eat tonight? I laughed casually. Anything's fine. You decide. On the other end of the line, Clara's voice suddenly sounded strange. There are girls at this party you're at? I laughed. Yeah, it's a graduation party for the whole class. Clara asked nonchalantly, what's her name? You wouldn't know her even if I told you, sis, I said, unconcerned. Clara's voice was steady. How do you know I wouldn't? I waved Vivian over and handed her the phone. Tell my sister your name. Vivian, completely clueless, was still grinning foolishly. She took the phone and announced herself. Clara. My name is Vivian Lin. Clara stood under the dorm building, looking at her phone nonstop. Why hasn't Leo posted anything? It's been so long. He always used to post pictures every time he went out. Her roommate, Sarah, couldn't take it anymore. Clara, I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Clara finally looked up, frowning slightly. What? Sarah. So everything I just said was for nothing? She patiently repeated herself. I said, if you're staying in the dorm tonight, remember to add money to your power card. Clara was distracted. I'm not staying. I just came back to get something. Sarah saw her staring at her phone. She leaned in curiously and saw that the screen was still on the chat with Leo. A light bulb went off. Oh, you're going home tonight, right? Clara looked down and said softly, yeah, my brother's at a party, and it's getting late. I'm gonna pick him up. Sarah patted her shoulder sympathetically. Being his sister sounds like you're his mom and dad, too. If you ask me, you should find him a girlfriend. That would take some of the pressure off you. Before she could finish, she felt the temperature around her drop. Sarah looked up into Clara's calm eyes. I should find him one? Clara smiled, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Who would you suggest? Sarah, being nearsighted, didn't notice the strange look on her face and was still stroking her chin thoughtfully. It's not a bad idea. I've met your brother. Clara stood up and started walking out of the school, her temples throbbing. The irritation in her heart grew stronger. Why did it feel like after she rejected Leo's confession, the whole world started working against her? After dinner, we all went to a murder mystery night. It didn't end until midnight. Vivian, as the vice class president, had been pressured into drinking a lot and was completely wasted. As we helped her out of the elevator, someone asked the key question. Where does she live? Everyone looked at each other blankly. Alex sighed. No choice. Let's get her a hotel room for the night. Make sure she pays us back tomorrow. Vivian was usually quiet and easygoing. She was popular with both the guys and the girls. When I got married, I heard she gave 100 as a wedding gift. Everyone instinctively pulled out their phones and started looking for a hotel for Vivian. Let's book a king room at this one. The price I'm seeing is 150. Damn, mine's more expensive. It's showing 180. Where'd you get a coupon? I opened the app and took a look, then froze. Why is it only showing 120 when I click it? Everyone urged me. Then book it on your phone. Clara's car was parked across the street. She watched as Leo and his friends came out of the building. Beside him, others were helping a drunk girl. Clara frowned slightly. Soon, a taxi pulled up in front of them. They all helped put the drunk girl into the car. She thought that would be the end of it. But then, Leo pulled open the car door and got in too. Just as she was getting out of her car to call out to him, her phone vibrated. It was a system notification. The moment she read the text, all the blood in her body rushed to her head. Dear Ms. Liu, you have successfully booked one premium honeymoon suite with a king-sized bed. After getting out of the taxi, I texted Clara. Something came up. If you haven't left yet, you don't need to come pick me up. I'm staying at a friend's place tonight. But Clara, who usually replied in seconds, was strangely silent. 5 minutes passed. Still no message from her. I wondered if she had even seen it. I sighed internally. It would be a waste of her time if she drove all the way to the murder mystery place just to wait for nothing. Hello, we're just confirming. The front desk clerk's voice brought me back. You booked a king-sized room, is that correct? Please provide the last 4 digits of your phone number. After I verified my information and got the room key, I remembered that I hadn't received a confirmation text, but I quickly pushed the thought aside. I had a more troublesome matter to deal with. Leo, can you grab Vivian's coat? Two guys helped Vivian into the elevator. Alex had gone to buy water for everyone. I was strong, but there was no use for my strength at the moment, so I could only hold Vivian's coat and stand by, waiting. As I stepped into the elevator last, I felt a pair of eyes staring intently at me from behind. But when I turned around, there was only the bright and quiet hotel lobby. Clara stood outside the hotel. Her phone was clutched tightly in her palm. The chat window was still open to the message Leo had sent. I'm staying at a friend's place tonight. For a moment, she wanted to expose his lie. She had already received the hotel confirmation text. She had followed the taxi the entire time and watched Leo walk into the hotel. He was holding another girl's coat in his arms, like it was some kind of precious treasure. Clara's red lips pressed into a thin line, her throat tight. The night wind on her face wasn't gentle as she'd imagined. It felt more like a thin blade, slowly flaying her flesh. She was waiting for some kind of verdict. Finally, 20 minutes later, a group of people trickled out of the hotel. Clara scanned the laughing and chatting teenagers, but she didn't see the person she was looking for. She couldn't comfort herself by thinking she had made a mistake. After all, she had been staring intently at the group from the moment they left the hotel. The only explanation could be that text message. Leo really had booked the room. The composure Clara had maintained since she parked the car, in that one moment, finally shattered. She felt a dull, heavy ache in her chest. I came out of the restroom to find my classmates already waiting for me outside the hotel. A message from Alex popped up on my screen. Leo, I'm waiting for the driver at the hotel entrance. Hurry up, our ride's almost here. As I stepped out of the elevator, I met a pair of cold eyes. The person who saw me also seemed momentarily stunned. I froze. Clara? I looked her up and down suspiciously. What are you doing here? Clara's gaze fell on the space behind me, then quickly returned to me. Her tone gradually softened. I'm here to take you home. I frowned. Didn't I tell you I'm staying at a friend's place tonight? Clara then fumbled for her phone and glanced down at it. Oh, I was driving. I didn't see my phone. Just as she finished speaking, my friends started calling for me. Leo, hurry up. What are you dawdling for? I quickly walked over to them. Clara followed right behind me. When we reached the group, they finally noticed the little tag-along behind me. I heard you were staying at a friend's place? Clara suddenly asked. Her gaze swept over my classmates, her tone nonchalant. Which friend would that be? The guys took a subtle step back. The only person left standing next to me was Alex. He quickly answered for me. He's staying at my place. Clara nodded and said flatly, then I'll give you both a ride home. I don't know if it was just my imagination, but Alex's house and my house were in completely opposite directions. If Clara dropped us off and then went home, she probably wouldn't get back until 3 or 4 in the morning. I waved my hand, refusing. No, that's too much trouble for you. Alex already called a ride. Clara didn't say anything, just looked down at me. The atmosphere suddenly became a little strange. Alex looked at me, then at Clara. Finally, he tugged on my sleeve and whispered, I did call one, but the driver canceled, and no one else is accepting the ride now. His voice wasn't loud, but Clara's hearing was excellent. She walked straight to her car and opened the door. She gave us an ultimatum. Get in. The car sped along the freeway, the scenery outside blurring past. In the early morning hours, the streets were nearly empty of pedestrians. All you could hear was the howling of the wind outside the car windows. I glanced at Clara's face in the rearview mirror. Compared to her gloomy expression from before, she finally looked a little more alive. Alex texted me from the back seat. Is your sister mad at you? She's not going to blame me, is she? My parents were often away on business trips, so Clara always handled parent-teacher conferences and other school activities for me. In my friends' minds, she was already on the same level as a parent. And adults like that always commanded a certain sense of fear. I had just squeezed his hand to signal that everything was fine when Clara spoke up. Why were you out so late today? Alex looked at me, then at her. Afraid Clara would take her anger out on me, he quickly spoke up. It had nothing to do with Leo. We were supposed to finish early. But Vivian got drunk and wouldn't leave the murder mystery room. Hearing this, Clara smiled. Vivian, the vice president of your class? When she smiled, she didn't seem so intimidating. It created the illusion of a gentle, older sister. But I knew her personality too well. This act could only fool people who didn't know her, making them lower their guard. Sure enough, Alex fell for it. Before I could even warn him, Alex had spilled the beans like he was emptying a bucket. Yeah, she sits in front of Leo. We all walk home together after late-night study sessions. Clara smiled, seeming to agree as she casually remarked, no wonder Leo comes home so late sometimes. The car stopped in front of Alex's building. Alex got out first. As I pushed the door open, Clara grabbed my wrist. I turned back in surprise. Are you mad at me today? Clara's voice was soft and low. I pulled my hand from her grasp and laughed. Nope. Clara asked again. Then why didn't you say a single word in the car? I looked down at her. In the moonlight, Clara's face was a mixture of light and shadow, making it hard to see her clearly. I just think you have superpowers, sis. I said with a sigh, to think you could find me at a hotel. Clara pressed her lips together, her voice hoarse. I just got a text from the hotel. You used my phone number to register when our family went on vacation once. I tilted my head. So, you saw the hotel text, but you didn't see my message? Clara went silent. After a long moment, she finally said calmly, I was worried about you. You're still young and with the opposite sex. Don't worry, sis. I smiled, casually cutting her off. I'm gonna start dating sooner or later. Clara's expression froze. Her lips instantly became dry and pale. I leaned in closer, my voice low enough for only the two of us to hear. You're the one who said it. A sister is just a sister. I spoke each word slowly, my eyes lowered. A slow smile spread across my face, just in case she didn't understand. A sister can never become a girlfriend. Ever since I was little, I knew I had special privileges with Clara. When my parents bought us snacks, Clara would always let me pick first, and she would take whatever was left. I was a picky eater, and though my parents would scold me for it, Clara would always smile and move the food from my plate to her own. Even when she passed by my school after her own late classes, she'd grab my backpack for me and buy me a boba tea. I never had to worry about running out of the allowance our parents gave us. Because after my share was gone, Clara's share still basically had my name on it. My parents' love for me was unconditional, born of blood. So what was Clara's indulgence and affection for me? We weren't related by blood. Her name wasn't even on the same household registry as mine. When I was first becoming aware of romance, I used to wonder about this. One day, during a humid summer downpour, Clara came to the school gate to walk me home. She had just gotten into a local university to stay close to home. Clara was wearing the shirt dress I had helped her pick out on our last shopping trip. Standing in the crowd, she was impossible to miss. The wide umbrella opened above our heads, like a canopy blocking out the sky. The rain was pouring. Clara carried my backpack on one shoulder, tilting the umbrella toward me. When I looked up, I could see her shoulder, half drenched by the rain. I remembered a joke a classmate had made after school. My sister brought her boyfriend home today. My new brother-in-law even bought me a present. I really don't know how my sister got so lucky. Hearing that, I suddenly felt a sour knot in my stomach. I couldn't imagine a day when Clara would suddenly come home holding hands with a strange guy. They would probably hold hands, their fingers intertwined. All the indulgence Clara showed me would be poured onto him instead. I secretly glanced up at Clara again. Sensing my gaze, she looked down at me. What are you looking at? I opened my mouth and whispered a few words. The torrential rain drowned out my voice. Clara didn't hear me and leaned closer, turning her ear toward me. What? She was so close. Her delicate neck and elegant collarbones were right there. In that moment, I could clearly hear my own heartbeat. Clara, I asked softly, will you ever leave me? Clara froze for a moment. I quickly looked down, hiding the panic in my eyes. A gentle pressure landed on my head. Clara's hand rested on top of my head, ruffling my hair. Of course not. She said, "What are you thinking about?" Clara had never let me down on a promise. But this time she lied to me. After I mustered up the courage to confess to her, what I got was more than just her cold rejection. From that day on, many things changed. Clara began to deliberately avoid me, pushing me away with a heart of stone, again and again. I would come home and never see her. If our eyes happened to meet, she would just look away indifferently. The sister whose eyes used to be filled with only me had become a complete stranger. I couldn't handle the drastic change. A cicada endures 17 years underground in darkness, all to sing its fervent love for one blazing summer. But I never got a response from my summer. The gentle dream I had imagined shattered into sharp fragments. And I was the one who broke the mirror that had once reflected only me. 5 years later, in Clara's study, I found stacks of paper filled with my name, written over and over. The love was as torrential as that summer storm. It was just hidden in the tangled roots of the earth. But that cicada had already died in the summer of 5 years ago. I opened my phone. My parents were sending red envelopes in the group chat. "Leo, happy birthday." Only then did I remember it was my birthday. Clara, who hadn't said a word, also sent a red envelope. She was still using the profile picture I had picked for her. I sent a happy bunny sticker. "Thanks, Mom, Dad, and Clara. I'm having friends over tonight. Don't disturb us." "Okay." My parents replied with a laughing voice message. "All right, then Mom and Dad will stay at the apartment near the office tonight. You have fun with your friends at home, but don't stay up too late, and don't drink too much." I agreed to everything. Clara didn't say anything. I couldn't be bothered with her and switched to another group chat. In the chat, Vivian was still busy profusely apologizing to everyone. "Thank you all so much for not letting me wander the streets last night." I cut her off. "Stop bowing. I have a job for you." "Vivian, speak, my lord." "Me. All you have to do is say 3 words, and you'll earn your first pot of gold." "Me you in?" Sarah was halfway through a game when she felt a cold draft on her back. She took off her headphones and turned around, jumping in fright. "Clara, are you crazy? Why are you staring at me like that?" Clara bit her lip, her tone unusually gentle. "Sarah, I remember you have a brother too, right?" Sarah was confused. "What? You want me to set you up with my brother now?" Clara took a deep breath and asked patiently, "I mean, what do you do when you and your brother fight?" Sarah looked baffled. "Fight? We fight all the time. Every day. We have a searchable track record of insults." Clara's brow furrowed. "You fight every day?" Sarah looked at her like she was an alien. "Duh. Isn't that how it is for everyone with siblings? You and your brother don't fight?" Clara thought about it. Not only had they never fought, their recent argument was the first one ever. But now wasn't the time to worry about other siblings. She asked again, seriously, "So after you fight, what do you do? How do you apologize? How do you make it up to him?" Sarah exploded at the suggestion. "I make it up to him? He's always the one who pisses me off first. Then he goes and snitches to our parents. You think I'm gonna make it up to him?" Clara's expression stiffened. "Right." Asking Sarah was a mistake. Sarah saw her face change and vaguely guessed something was up. She felt something was off, but with her brain power, she couldn't quite figure it out. "I've never had to make up with my brother, but I have with my boyfriend," Sarah said, thinking seriously. "I feel like the two are basically the same. It's all about making a guy happy." Boyfriend. When Clara heard those 2 words, she felt a momentary daze. She forced herself to stay calm and asked flatly, "For example?" Sarah handed her phone over. "For example, you could change your social media background to his photo and then post an apology." Clara looked down at the phone. She remembered once when she posted something and used a picture of Leo. That same day, 3 friends had asked her, "Girl, introduce me." "Clara, do you want a sister-in-law? Hey, from now on, we're family." Clara felt like she was suffocating again. She frowned. "Aren't there any other ways?" Sarah stroked her chin, deep in thought. "Then you could buy him something. A watch, cufflinks, or something else he likes. If all else fails, just cry a little. My boyfriend says he can't stand it when a girl cries. A girl's tears are a nuclear weapon. Who would have thought that my birthday would coincide with another thunderstorm? By the time Vivian, Alex, and the others got to my house, they were soaked like drowned rats. I took Alex to the guest room and led Vivian to the bathroom next to my bedroom. I found them towels to dry their hair. Leo, do you have any spare clothes? Alex came out of the guest room wearing a spare set of my sweats and asked kindly, it was pouring just now, and Vivian's clothes got soaked trying to protect your cake. I racked my brain. My closet was full of guys' clothes. Where would I find anything for a girl? Oh, right. I remembered I'd bought a new watch for Clara a few days ago, but she hadn't accepted it because of the whole confession thing. Give this to her. Tell her to come down after she changes into some dry clothes. But I didn't expect Clara to come back so soon. I had just handed my clean t-shirt and sweatpants to Vivian, telling her to change in the bathroom, when I heard the front door open downstairs. Alex and I rushed downstairs, and there was Clara. She was closing her umbrella, holding a bouquet of flowers and a beautifully wrapped gift box for a watch. Clara, why are you back? I was stunned for a moment. She was back so early? I hadn't even rehearsed the lines with Vivian yet. Clara was as cool as a cucumber. Yeah, it's your birthday. I don't have class this afternoon, so I brought you your gift. Just as she finished speaking, footsteps sounded from the second floor. Vivian came down the stairs, shuffling in slippers. Hey Leo, you're not going to believe it, but these clothes actually fit. She stopped when she realized how weird the atmosphere was. Everyone's eyes were on her. Clara looked up at her. Her gaze drifted down to the clothes Vivian was wearing. After a moment, she smiled. But the smile was cold. You're right. Those clothes fit perfectly. Alex sensed something was wrong and quickly gave Vivian a look. The two of them, right in front of me, began an impromptu performance that had never been rehearsed. Vivian quickly caught on, remembering my previous instructions. She calmly threw out 3 words. It was a royal flush. Sister-in-law. Clara didn't quite hear her, looking confused. What? Vivian. Sister-in-law. She was getting into her role, adding her own lines, and even tried to shake Clara's hand. My name is Vivian Lynn. I'm Leo's class. Before she could finish, Clara blocked her hand. Her eyes were filled with ice. Is that what you should be calling me? Vivian was confused. Alex was bewildered. Alarm bells went off in my head, but my wrist was already in a tight grip. Clara, her face practically a mask of ice, dragged me upstairs. The door slammed shut behind us with a bang. Outside, the wind howled, and the gloomy sky cast the entire bedroom in shadow. I looked at Clara and frowned slightly. Clara, what's wrong? Clara asked, are you and Vivian dating? I looked at her without answering. My silence was a tacit admission. A crack appeared in Clara's usually calm and composed mask. The color drained from her face at a visible rate. All the blood left her lips. In that instant, I thought I saw a withered cicada. Clara stood on her tiptoes, cupped my face in her hands, and asked in a hoarse voice, break up with her. Okay? I looked down at her and asked with a small laugh, why? Clara gritted her teeth, but every word she spoke sounded more like a whispered plea. Break up with her, and I'll be your girlfriend. The room was so quiet you could only hear the shattering sound of raindrops hitting the window. Took me a long time to find my voice. But you said you never regret anything. A bolt of lightning flashed outside, illuminating half of Clara's face. Her delicate nose and sharp jawline were just inches away. The face I had longed for, but could only trace in my dreams. You said last time that the person who regrets has to be a puppy forever. Clara licked her dry lips, her breath catching. She looked up at me, her voice soft and hoarse. Does that still count? Clara lowered her gaze slightly, her eyelashes fluttering like a butterfly's wings. A single tear fell onto the back of my hand. So even the most hard-hearted person's tears are scalding hot. Clara, cowards don't deserve to be loved. I looked down at her, my own eyes turning red. You're a coward. You let me bear that long agony alone. You let me fall into a frozen abyss in the middle of summer. Clara just wrapped her arms tighter around my waist and placed a wet kiss on my forehead. Her voice was choked with emotion. Yes, I'm a coward. It was my fault. Real siblings are connected by blood. No matter how bad a fight gets, you have to see each other the next day. It's like a get-out-of-jail-free card. But Clara and I have no real relationship. Our so-called sibling bond is just a title. I could decide I don't need her at any moment. Once the novelty of our daily life wore off, we would just become strangers who never see each other again. Not only could we not be a couple, we couldn't even be family anymore. I took her hand and pressed it firmly against my own. The moment our palms met, it felt like our blood vessels were intertwined. I know what you're worried about. I looked at Clara and said, word by word, this is our red thread. As long as your heart is still beating, you can't even think about cutting our connection. I leaned down and gently kissed her lips, murmuring softly to comfort her. 5 years from now, I will marry you, and everyone will celebrate with us. Clara looked a little dazed. She reached up and gently wiped away my tears. She tilted her head up and kissed the corner of my eye, my earlobe. After getting my silent permission, she slowly tightened her arms, as if trying to merge me into her body. The kiss was long and difficult. Gradually, it became as wild as a storm, trying to make up for all the past mistakes. Outside, the torrential night rain hammered on the roof. We followed the absolute laws of this world, but suddenly we stopped for one wrong note. We paused for a love that existed outside the rules. In the shade, our branches intertwined, never letting go. Epilogue. When my parents came back from their business trip, I was just coming out of Clara's study. Leo, Clara, come out and say hi to our guests. My dad's voice was booming. When I got downstairs, I saw 3 people behind them, a middle-aged couple and a handsome guy about Clara's age. My mom introduced me. Leo, this is your uncle and aunt Song. She pushed the guy in front of me. This is Nathan. You can call him Nathan. I smiled and politely agreed. Just then, Clara came out of the study, subtly adjusting her collar. My dad quickly pushed Clara in front of the guests, introducing her eagerly. This is Clara. Then he said to Clara, the Songs were friends of your parents, too. Everyone knew Clara was adopted by my parents. Clara paused for a moment, then smiled and greeted them. At the dinner table, the conversation inevitably turned to her. As the elders talked, they couldn't help but reminisce about the past, their eyes turning red. Clara, your aunt and I were abroad back then, and we couldn't help with some things. Mr. Song took her hand and said earnestly, you should come over to our house more often. If you need anything from us, just ask. He added meaningfully, you and Nathan are about the same age. You should exchange numbers, just be friends. Clara looked up and met my gaze. I looked away and served myself some soup. Clara chuckled, raised her glass, and changed the subject. Okay, thank you, Mr. Song. Let's eat first. Mrs. Song seemed very curious about Clara, constantly asking about her school, major, and hobbies. Nathan would occasionally chime in with a smile. Clara, you like hiking too? You and Nathan should go together sometime. Mrs. Song quickly added with a laugh, our Nathan has been complaining that he has no one to go hiking with on the weekends. Just as Clara was about to speak, she felt a sharp pain in her shin. She couldn't help but hiss. Even without looking down, she knew I had kicked her hard under the table. But on the surface, I was still calmly picking at my food. Hiking is probably not an option, Clara said with a smile, declining the offer. My professor has given me a lot to do recently. A flicker of disappointment crossed Mrs. Song's and Nathan's faces. I felt a little bad, so I spoke up. How about I go with you? I said to Nathan, I'm free this weekend. Nathan's face lit up. Yeah, great. Now it was Clara's turn to frown. She asked with a half smile, didn't you have plans with your friends this weekend? Friends? I searched my brain for a moment. Then I remembered she was talking about the movie we had agreed last week to see this weekend. Oh, I saw Nathan looking at me nervously and reassured him. It's fine, my friends and I can go on Saturday. Clara laughed, but it was a cold, bitter sound. Then you better remember to make it up to your friends. We were talking in riddles. Mr. Song saw it all. he said with the knowing air of someone who's seen it all. I see. Does Leo have a date with his girlfriend this weekend? Suddenly, the whole table went silent. We all simultaneously looked down at our food. My dad sensed something was wrong. Girlfriend? He looked baffled. Who? You're dating someone? He quickly turned to Clara. Your brother is dating someone, do you know? She glanced at me, then calmly looked down. I know. My dad got angry. Why didn't you tell me something so important? Where's a picture? Let me see. How much more do you need to see? She's sitting right in front of you. That night, after the songs left, my parents interrogated me about my girlfriend. My dad pressed Clara. Tell me, what does she look like? How old is she? What's her major? What's her family situation? Clara stood up straight. She lowered her gaze, her lips slightly parted. She looks okay. Her age, she's the same age as me, and her major is the same as mine. My mom, cracking sunflower seeds, pursed her lips. Oh, so she's one of your classmates, Clara. Since she's so similar to you, you might as well just date your sister. At least we know her background. It was just a casual comment. But my mom had no idea she would one day eat her words. I said calmly, you're right. I am dating Clara. My mom froze. My dad froze. Even Clara, standing beside me, was stunned for a moment. My dad shot up and raged. Clara quickly pulled me behind her.
I'm sorry, Dad.
Her expression was serious as she said, word for word, I confessed first. My dad raised his hand as if to hit her, but then it stopped in midair. What did you call me? Dad? You're not even calling me Dad anymore. Translator's note, original text has her switching from Dad to Uncle. I changed it to reflect the change in tone. My mom finally snapped out of it, grabbed me, and looked me up and down anxiously. When did this happen? How could you hide something so big from your mother? How can you two be together? This is… She stopped, realizing the word she was about to use wasn't quite right. It didn't really fit that description. I pulled Clara in front of me. It hasn't been long, just a few months. Seeing my mom about to speak again, I cut her off. We haven't done anything. And Clara didn't confess first. I fell for her first. Clara isn't my real sister, so why can't I like her? I said all their lines for them in one breath. My parents were stunned, like two statues. There are 3 benefits to Clara being my girlfriend. First, I don't have to move out. This is my home, and it's our home. Second, Clara's parents are my parents, and my parents are my family. No one can bully me. Third, Clara and I grew up together. I know her inside and out. Why would we let such an amazing daughter-in-law get away? I held Clara's hand and faced them squarely. My parents opened their mouths, but couldn't say a word. That night, I don't remember how I got back to my bedroom. The house was just so quiet. It was like no one lived there. Clara texted me, "You should have talked to me before saying all that." I typed back quickly. They were going to find out sooner or later. Clara was silent for a long time before she replied. You still should have talked to me. There could have been a gentler way to handle this. And I should have been the one to confess. It's not right for you to take the lead. I didn't reply. What was the difference between me taking the lead and her taking the lead? Either way, we'd both get yelled at. When we were little and my dad hit Clara, I laughed on the side and got a beating too. When I got hit, Clara got a couple of slaps for not looking after me properly. We were already 2 grasshoppers on the same string. What was the point of deciding who dies first? Late at night, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to see my dad, his face expressionless. Come to the study. When I got to the study, I found Clara already waiting. My dad and mom exchanged a look, and he asked in a deep voice, "How are you two going to resolve this?" I was about to speak, but Clara pulled me behind her. She said calmly, "Dad, Mom, I wanted to wait until Leo graduates to get married." Ha, my dad sneered. "You're thinking pretty far ahead." Clara pressed her lips together, her voice flat. "If we want to do something sooner, we can get engaged first." My mom stepped in to play peacemaker. "This is all very sudden. Your father and I are having a hard time accepting it." I asked them, "So you can accept me dating a stranger?" There are plenty of wannabe gangsters around who are only interested in our family's money. My dad got angry. That's not the only kind of girl out there. I asked, oh, so you must be talking about the slick-talking, rich party girls whose ex-boyfriends could form a soccer team? My dad, there must be others. I shook my head. The only ones left among your friends' kids are a bald guy with a beer belly and a chubby gamer who does nothing but play video games all day. Of course, I'm not saying they're bad people. They're all very nice, I just don't like them. Beside me, Clara cleared her throat. It brought my parents' thoughts back to the present. Their expressions toward Clara became complicated. The study was quiet again for a moment. Clara took my hand, our fingers intertwining. Mom, Dad, it's not that hard to accept. Her voice was flat. We don't care what outsiders think. My dad raised his voice, full of disappointment. You don't care even if they gossip behind your backs? I said calmly, Dad, I only have one life. I can only give it to the person I love. This time, it was my parents' turn to sigh. They looked at each other again and finally gave in. This isn't a huge deal, but it's not a small one either. We need to think about this carefully. They looked like they had lost all their strength and options. You two go back and rest. Your mother and I need to talk more. After leaving the study, I still felt uneasy. I asked Clara, what are they talking about? Clara looked down, squeezed my cheek, and sighed too. I don't know. Maybe they just can't accept it right now. We can explain it to them again tomorrow. My heart felt empty and worried. After Clara went back to her room, I tiptoed to the study door. I pressed my ear against it to eavesdrop. Inside, my dad was still sighing. At first, I felt a pang of guilt for upsetting them. But the more I listened, the more something felt off. My dad opened the calendar on his phone to show my mom. Actually, I think they can date for a few years before getting engaged. Sai, have your dad check the old farmer's almanac for a lucky day. Sai, we don't need too many people for the engagement. Just one table is fine. Other people don't understand their situation and will just gossip. Sai, good thing we never officially transferred Clara's household registration over. It just occurred to me, their future kids will still have the last name Carter. That's good. We don't have to worry about a dowry or wedding gifts. That's pretty great. Huh. Leo can just live at home. We'll all still be one family. This is actually a great thing.